Hello, good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Rachel Burden and Ben Thompson.
Our headlines at 8 o'clock. President Donald Trump's trade tariffs come into force from today after their announcement caused the US and UK stock markets to suffer their worst week since COVID.
The BBC understands Instagram's owner Meta and Pinterest have made significant donations to a charity set up in the name of 14-year-old Molly Russell. She took her own life in 2017 after being exposed to distressing content on their platforms.
Council tax is doubling for some second homeowners, but will it help bring property prices down for locals?
Good morning from a sunny Aintree on Grand National Day. I'm by the winning post here. The question is, will I Maximus be the first past this point again this afternoon for the second year running? So continuing the dominance of trainer Willie Mullins.
Now, spring has sprung. Or has it? We'll get a gardener's take on what you should be doing now that the weather appears to be getting a bit better.
But no rain for those gardens in sight the next week yet. Plenty of sunshine by day, but the nights will still be chilly. I'll have all the forecast details here on Breakfast.
Good morning on this lovely sunny morning once again. It's Saturday, the 5th of April. Our main story today, President Donald Trump's sweeping 10% tariffs on goods from every country, including the UK, have come into force this morning.
Yes, the fallout from the import tax has prompted sharp falls on stock markets around the world. US and UK markets suffered their worst weeks since COVID.
So Keir Starmer is spending the weekend speaking to foreign leaders about how to avoid what Downing Street called an all-out trade war. Our North America correspondent David Willis reports.
The closing bell bringing to an end a tumultuous week on Wall Street, one that has seen trillions of dollars wiped off share prices around the world. Rictus grins from those on the trading floor, greeting a market meltdown of the kind not seen since COVID.
China, 67%. That's tariffs.
It was retaliation from the country at the top of Donald Trump's list, the one with whom the United States has the largest trade deficit, that prompted this second day of sell-off as China hit back with 34% tariffs of its own. On his Truth Social platform, the president accused the Chinese of panicking. China played it wrong, he wrote. Earlier, doubling down on his controversial trade policy with an all-caps message that read, "To the many investors coming into the United States and investing massive amounts of money, my policies will never change. This is a great time to get rich, richer than ever before." Not a sentiment shared by the chairman of America's central bank, the Federal Reserve, who delivered a softly spoken warning of inflation rather than prosperity.
While uncertainty remains elevated, it is now becoming clear that tariff increases will be significantly larger than expected. And the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. The size and duration of these effects remains uncertain.
10% tariffs on all imports into the US came into effect overnight, with higher so-called reciprocal levies on goods from certain nations set to follow next week. Analysts warn the measures could slow economic growth and lead to a global recession. If that, or the stock market turmoil, is worrying President Trump, he isn't letting it show. He spent the day at his Florida golf course, defiant in the belief that his Liberation Day announcement will indeed make America wealthy again. David Willis, BBC News, Los Angeles.
Well, from next week, some countries will face even higher import taxes under President Trump's changes.
China is one of them, and it has responded by imposing its own tariffs of 34% on US goods, as our correspondent Stephen McDonnell explains.
Well, Beijing is certainly taking it right back up to Donald Trump following his tariffs. There had been a view that the Chinese government might hold off for at least a little bit with a view to cutting some sort of a deal. Xi Jinping has obviously decided there is no deal to be cut, certainly not in the near future and certainly not to China's liking. So why not reveal these resolute countermeasures that have been promised? Well, the countermeasures, they're disastrous for every US company wanting to sell into this huge market, especially bad for the US ag sector. Now remember, they already had 10 or 15% tariffs on them from China's last response to the last round of Trump tariffs on this place. Now you're adding 34% on top of that. It's essentially cutting most of them out of this market, and that's striking right into Donald Trump's heartland, and that can't be an accident. The rest of the world, though, is looking at the superpowers. They're at each other's throats, and economists are warning this could spread around the globe, causing potentially catastrophic damage to the world economy. Now, maybe China could find new trading partners, China and Europe, China and Canada, new pathways which are cutting the US out of the loop because of its trade barriers. That's going to hurt US companies and US consumers even further. But we are definitely in uncharted territory here, and I think most observers would say we're just going to have to wait and see where the chips fall before deciding just how bad this could get.
Steve McDonnell there on that response from China. Well, back here in the UK, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, will spend the weekend calling Western allies, considering how to best respond to those tariffs being imposed by President Trump. Our political correspondent is Billy Kember. He joins us now. And Billy, what are we expecting that response might look like?
Good morning. Yes, the Prime Minister is grappling this weekend with how to respond to those US tariffs that came into effect overnight, how to protect jobs and growth in the UK. And his government has acknowledged that the global economic landscape has shifted with those tariffs and that we need to shift with it, as Downing Street puts it. So we can certainly expect to see an announcement probably on Monday about what that response is going to look like. In the meantime, the government hasn't ruled out bringing in retaliatory tariffs, but its preference is to avoid that. Talks are ongoing with the US about a potential deal which could mitigate some of these tariffs or even remove them altogether. And the Prime Minister is spending the weekend speaking to other leaders. He spoke to the Italian Prime Minister on Friday and the Australian Prime Minister on the same day to emphasise his approach that free trade is the way forward and that the need is to avoid a global trade war. Of course, these US tariffs are already having consequences for the government on policies that on the face of it would be unrelated to economic decisions made in the US. We're expecting to see an announcement this week that sales targets for electric vehicles will be relaxed, those rules will be watered down, and that's in response to a 25% tariff that's been put on British car makers. So profound consequences for this government's agenda from decisions being made in the White House.
Billy, for now, thanks very much. Billy Kember there with the very latest on what that response may look like. We'll talk some more about that a little later, but let's get the rest of today's main stories with Rachel Morley.
Thank you, Ben. Now, the BBC understands that Instagram's owner Meta and Pinterest have made secret donations to a charity set up in the name of 14-year-old Molly Russell. Molly took her own life after being exposed to a stream of suicide and self-harm material on the platforms. Her family say they would never accept compensation over her death. Our correspondent Angus Crawford reports.
Molly Russell's death sparked a national debate about children and online safety. Her father, Ian, found a stream of dark, depressing material on her social media and became a campaigner for change, telling Molly's story to parents, royalty, MPs. At her inquest in 2022, the coroner ruled the negative content on Meta-owned Instagram and on Pinterest played a part in her death. Ian Russell didn't take legal action against them. Now, BBC News understands the two companies have made significant donations to the charity named after her. The payments to the charity are believed to have started last year. The Russell family themselves haven't received any of the money. In a statement, the family confirmed they would never accept compensation over Molly's death, but would pursue the aims they share with Meta and Pinterest through the Molly Rose Foundation to ensure young people have a positive experience online. We contacted Meta and Pinterest, but they failed to provide a response. Ian Russell remained an outspoken critic, here condemning Meta's recent changes to its fact-checking system.
By turning the platforms backwards, away from safety, Mark Zuckerberg has changed the game fundamentally and shown that the platforms aren't really here to play safe. They're here to make money.
The very platforms whose content harmed Molly now helping fund the charity set up in her name. Angus Crawford, BBC News.
A man has been charged with murder after the death of a 16-year-old boy in Huddersfield. The teenager died in hospital after being stabbed in the neck. Our correspondent Ellie Price has more on this for us now. Ellie, what can you tell us about what's happened here?
Well, as you say, 20-year-old Alfie Franco from Kirklees will appear before Leeds Magistrates Court this morning. Now, he's charged with the murder of a 16-year-old male in Huddersfield and possessing a knife in a public place. Now, the 20-year-old was charged overnight and kept in custody ahead of that court appearance later this morning. Now, a male and a female who were arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender have now been released on bail. Now, this was a stabbing that took place on Thursday afternoon at around 2:45 in the afternoon in Huddersfield on Ramsden Road. The victim received a single stab wound to the neck and later died in hospital. So far, that victim hasn't been named publicly, but previously the police had issued an appeal to the public saying that there had been a certain amount of misinformation spreading on social media and for people to stop speculating as to the causes and indeed what happened as their inquiries continue.
Ellie, thank you very much. A Russian missile attack on President Zelensky's home city has killed at least 18 people and left dozens wounded, according to Ukrainian officials. The attack on Kryvyi Rih early Friday evening was among the deadliest on the city since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. Our Ukraine correspondent James Waterhouse gave us this update from Kyiv.
Well, in the 24 hours that followed, there has been another drone strike on Kryvyi Rih. This is a city that is routinely hit by airstrikes launched by occupying Russian forces further south. Now, the authorities there, as you say that a ballistic missile struck a residential block. I mean, there were pretty distressing images showing a gaping hole, smouldering hole in the side of a residential block with bodies scattered in a neighbouring playground and across the pavement. Now, the Kremlin is claiming that it successfully hit a gathering of Ukrainian military officers in a restaurant. But if you look at the signs, this is pointing to yet another, especially devastating strike in a densely populated city. And there is a political backdrop here as well. America is trying to spearhead ceasefire efforts. It is starting to lose patience with Russia over the pace of those developments. And the US ambassador to Ukraine posted last night saying that a ballistic missile landed in Kryvyi Rih and urged the war to stop. She didn't say, unlike the authorities in Kryvyi Rih, who launched it. This is a Washington more reluctant these days to condemn Moscow for its continued full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
That's James Waterhouse there with the latest for us from Kyiv. The time just about to turn 8:15. Good morning. Now, I'd imagine becoming a mum for the first time pretty exhausting, however old you are. So congratulations and maybe a bit of good luck to this tortoise that's had her first ever babies at the age of about 100.
Well, these are the babies here that you can see, these 4 hatchlings. There's the mum there. So the hatchlings were born in February in Philadelphia Zoo. They're said to be thriving. Now, their parents, Mummy and Abrazo, are Galapagos tortoises, which are critically endangered. And Mummy, do you know, arrived at the zoo back in 1932.
That's astonishing.
Thought to be the oldest of her species, to become a first-time mother, because they can live for a very, very long time. But not as many of them has been as fertile at that age as Mummy has. So, yeah, good luck to her.
Do you think Mum would get a bit more than a bit of lettuce as well after that?
I know, I'd want a bit more. At least the little baby tortoises are fairly chill. She's not having to run around after them.
But they're certainly not going to run anywhere, are they?
No. Now, Matt, that's a beautiful, beautiful picture behind you, but I'm going to be going to London tomorrow to do a half marathon there. There's a marathon, I think, in Brighton tomorrow as well. And no doubt there are loads of running events all over the country. How hot is it going to be tomorrow morning?
Well, thankfully for running, it's not going to be too hot, to be honest. It'll actually be quite chilly first thing in the morning. Bear that in mind if you're off to any starting line tomorrow. The air has got that little bit cooler, Rachel. Very good morning too, because yesterday was a warmest day of the year. This was Hampshire, where we saw the highest temperature recorded, 24 degrees. Wales also had its highest temperature of the year so far at Usk in the southeast. Notice, though, Edinburgh, just 9 Celsius. That's a big contrast, and that's because the wind has been coming off the sea in some eastern areas, preventing that lift in temperature. but all these places except Edinburgh will see a drop in temperature today, relatively speaking, because whilst we still have high pressure in charge and a fair bit of sunshine around, there is slightly cooler air with us. Air of high pressure is just shifting a bit, and around it we're bringing the blue colours. This is colder air from Scandinavia in towards the UK. So temperature's down, but still away from those eastern coasts, above where we should be for early stage of April. Now, other thing to notice, we've got quite a bit more cloud across parts of central eastern England, eastern Scotland this morning. Right now, a lot of that will break and clear in the next few hours. There will be some, though, that lingers around some of these eastern coasts, and quite windy out there in places today, especially towards the southwest. But this is where we'll see some of the highest temperatures, 19, 20, maybe 21 degrees, down in yesterday's values, but still pretty impressive for this stage in the year. Notice, though, just 9 to 12 Celsius still and those eastern coast, that wind coming off a very chilly North Sea. Pollen levels for the hay fever sufferers, and I'm one of them. It has been a bit of a struggle this week. High, very high across some southern areas thanks to the tree pollen. And then into tonight, low clouds will be there across eastern Scotland this time. Not as much across England and Wales, the odd pocket of fog. But with clearer skies, winds just easing a tad. It will be a case of a touch of frost away from towns and city centres. So into Sunday, a fresh start. So as Rachel said, if you're on the starting line somewhere, it will be a little bit chilly. Strong sunshine overhead. Make sure you've got the sun cream with you and some water. But look at this, blue skies for the vast majority through the day. Main exception, Orkney and Shetland, low cloud here for a good part of the day, 8 degrees. Still chilly down these eastern coasts, and temperatures down a little bit across some western areas as well. But with high pressure just sitting on top of us into next week, and centred around the north of the UK, this is where we see the lightest of the winds at times, and it's going to stay dry. Monday, mist and fog to begin with. Still some low cloud in Shetland, but other than that, another day of blue skies and dry weather. Temperatures starting to lift yet again with winds lighter. Highest probably across northern Scotland and to the west of Northern Ireland at around 18 or 19 degrees. And they will lift even further as we go through this coming week. In fact, temperatures could climb high teens, low 20s for some once again. Watch out though, Wednesday in particular, there could be quite a bit of low cloud coming off the North Sea, so it may be a bit grey and misty to begin with. And you can check, of course, in the BBC Weather app if there will be some low cloud with you on Wednesday, and of course how high your temperatures will get. But certainly this weekend, a little bit cooler than the weather before it and the weather that precedes it.
Yeah, sun cream is a good shout. That's on my list, so thank you very much for reminding me. Thank you, Matt.
The time now just approaching 20 minutes past 8. Now, NHS England has published new guidelines aimed at making care for patients with suicidal thoughts feel more supported. It also says mental health practitioners should engage with patients' family and friends to better understand their social situation.
Now, in the UK, 17 people die by suicide each day.
On average, 5 of them would have been in contact with mental health services, and 4 of those, about 80%, would have been assessed as low or no risk at their last contact with a practitioner.
So the new Staying Safe from Suicide guidance will see reforms to the way risk of suicide and self-harm are assessed, with NHS England deeming the current methods unreliable due to how quickly suicidal thoughts can change.
Well, instead, they're calling for a more person-centred approach. It would focus on each individual's situation and managing their safety.
NHS England say this guidance should be adopted across the board by public, private and voluntary sector providers, including independent practitioners.
Well, we're joined now by Philip Peary, who's the co-author of the guidance, whose son Tom took his own life in 2020. And also with us, Dr John van Niekerk from the Royal College of Psychiatrists. Good morning to both. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
Philip, good morning. Let me start with you and just talk to us, first of all, about Tom and the help that he was getting when he took his life.
Yeah, Tom was a very friendly person. He was friendly, he was outgoing, he was confident, he was determined, he was a strong character. He loved sport, he loved football especially. He did well at school and at university academically. He could speak 3 languages fluently. And he wanted to do some good in the world, which is why he wanted to be a teacher. And just to say that, I think on that he brought an enormous amount of joy to all those who loved him.
He was being supported at the time that he killed himself. He was receiving some counselling.
Yes.
But to your knowledge, was there any awareness at all that he was at the point whereby he could really do himself serious harm?
No, I don't think there was any awareness. We were aware that he was having some difficult mental health problems. We had no idea how serious they were. And I think he basically received the wrong kind of care, and that's why I started my campaign to reform the system of suicide risk assessment.
Just how hard is it, do you think, and we'll ask John this in just a moment, to make that assessment, to be able to kind of really understand how vulnerable an individual is at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, but what we're saying in the guidance is that it's very important to take a personal and collaborative approach. This is not a place for checklists. Checklists get in the way of the practitioner developing that really important therapeutic relationship with the person. So really the focus needs to be on the practitioner. I mean, I talk about practitioner, that covers counsellors, psychotherapists, mental health practitioners. It's across the board, right? So this guidance is not just for NHS practitioners, but it's also for private sector and also charity sector practitioners. That's the first time this has been done. So I think that's going to be a big step forward. So we're saying personal and collaborative. Think about the person in front of you who's another human being who's probably suffering enormous mental distress, and it's been probably a very big decision for them to come and sit in front of you, you know. So for you to be able to help them, you've got to encourage them to open up, which means really building a relationship of trust and confidence. Speak person to person, not on a checklist.
Dr. John Ledders asked you exactly that. You know, how significant a shift is this, that it moves away from being purely a risk assessment exercise towards, as we were hearing there, something that is personally tailored to the individual?
Yes, it's a huge shift, and it places the assessment places the value of the human relationship between the practitioner and the individual that's being assessed, and it takes us away from in the past, which we know hasn't worked, and we've known this for some time. And NHS, nice guidance have been there that we should move away from these tick box assessments and move towards collaborative assessments that focuses on the individual, on the personal individual, and then use that relationship to tailor safety plans that are co-produced with the individual and their family, the people that care about them, to actually move things forward towards safety. But it is a huge challenge, and it will require a lot of training, supervision, protected time to embed this approach safely. And what is so beautiful about this guidance is it's brought people from right across the system, those with lived experience, the academics, the experts, the frontline clinicians, to create guidance that has truly been co-produced. And it's been a real privilege to work with Philip and NHS England and other leaders on this work.
You used the word or the phrase safety plan, that you would be able to work up a safety plan with the individual. What is that and how would it work?
So the safety plan is where we focus on those things that are individual to that particular person, as Philip has said, that person in front of you. So it moves away from focusing on the tick box on whether you are low, medium or high risk, and actually look on those factors that will keep the person safe. And that is very unique and personalized to each individual and to the family that support them. And it's really then moving the language changes as well from risk to actually safety, and then it can instill hope. We know from research then when people are involved in their care plans and they can shape them, then they own them much more. There's much more compliance with, for instance, medication or therapy, when it's actually something that they've had a say in, and they own that with the family much more. And that's what will make care safer, and what I think this guidance will do, and if properly implemented, and we've seen it in a few trusts already where they have taken this forward, where they moved away away from the risk stratification. They've co-produced that safety care plan. They have put the reflective supervision and training in, that the care that they're getting at the end of that is so much better.
I guess, Philip, you really believe then lives could be saved if this is universally adopted, this new strategy. But the other thing that really strikes me from this conversation is that of those 17 people who take their own lives every day, the vast majority are not even accessing mental health services. And that is a gap that also needs to be addressed and
absolutely
narrowed.
Yeah, it's very, very, very important. Can I just add something to what John said, which is that the whole idea of trying to predict suicide is completely flawed. That we know that attempts to predict suicide are wrong more than 95% of the time, right? So that's something which should be stopped, right? And concentrate on the personal and collaborative approach. Yeah, I mean, back to the question, absolutely, 1754 you were talking about, so it's only 5 are in contact with mental health services. That means that 12 are not in contact with mental health services. The large majority of those 12 are men. At least 3 times more men than women take their own lives. And I think that is basically because men very often think that seeking help is a sign of weakness or failure, right? So they're most affected by the so-called stigma of suicide. So we've really got to try and break down that stigma so that more of those 12 seek help, and that when they get help, they get the right kind of help.
I wanted to ask that. You know, it is young men, particularly, that are facing this challenge.
It is. It's a big challenge. You know, suicide is the biggest killer of young people in this country. It's a terrible scourge on society.
How do we change that? How do we improve that dialogue and, as you say, change that stigma?
Well, I think changing the stigma is a question of public awareness. And one of the things I'm asking the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, for is a meeting, because I want to talk to him about reducing the rate of suicide and saving lives. And I very much hope I'll be able to talk to him soon about that.
Well, it's admirable work you're doing. Thank you very much for coming to talk to us, Philip. We really appreciate your time.
I don't want Tom's death to have been in vain.
Fully understand that. Thank you.
Good to talk to you this morning. Thank you for being here.
It is 29 minutes past 8, and we're going to talk now about a week-long celebration of Scottish heritage, which all starts in New York today. It's called Tartan Week, and it means people from all over the world come together, embracing Scottish delicacies, culture and traditions.
Among the celebrations is today's Tartan Day Parade. It'll feature bagpipes, Highland dancing, as our correspondent David Wallace-Lockhart has been finding out.
New York City. You probably think yellow taxis, Times Square and street vendors.
But this week, things are a little different. It's Tartan Week, which means Scotland goes stateside.
Quick, back.
The Renfrewshire Schools Pipe Band will be taking part in this afternoon's Tartan Day Parade, led by the Grand Marshal, actor Alan Cumming.
Keith Bowes has helped to organise this trip.
A lot of these young people have never been to America. Some have never been on a flight before, so it's such a super experience for them. And yeah, I think they appreciate it hugely, the efforts everyone's gone to get them here.
How does Piper Craig Caldwell feel about taking part?
Buzzing. It's, you know, I can't really put it into words. It's, again, something that not many people can say they've done.
This week is about more than the parade. At the Tartan Week Mod, a celebration of Gaelic arts, one school choir flew 24 hours from Shanghai to take part.
The song is repetitive, so it's actually quite okay to learn the song itself. But I think if we're going to learn the Gaelic itself, it's going to be really hard.
Kyle Dawson is the president of Tartan Week, a New Yorker who's proud of his Scottish heritage.
We founded Tartan Week to celebrate the Scots immigrants and Scottish Americans and what they've done to build this country, because there was really no celebration for them. We had St. Andrew's Day, it's around the world, but Tartan Week really celebrates what they've done to build the United States.
There is a shadow over this Tartan Week. Donald Trump, a half-Scottish president, has disrupted global trade. But for those who've made the trip, this is simply about celebrating Scotland's contribution and influence across the pond. David Wallace-Lockhart, BBC News, New York City.
Now, more than 150,000 people are expected to head to Aintree later for the Grand National, one of the biggest dates, if not the biggest date, in the horse racing calendar.
The weather looks good, but all the other details Mike can bring us now. And Mike, you've been all over that course. You've been walking the course this morning. How's it looking?
It's looking great, yeah. They've been watering it to make sure it's not too dry. I want you to use your imaginations, Ben and Rachel. Imagine I'm on a horse now. It's 4:15 and I've just won the Grand National, in my dreams, of course. But this is where the winning jockey will come on their horse and then they'll turn right to have photos taken over there before eventually coming back into this area to there, go onto the podium. It's like the Olympics, isn't it, with the gold medal position there. The podium to collect the trophy, a different trophy every year at the moment. And there we have the history-making Rachel Blackmore in the middle, who made history in 2021, winning the Grand National, first female jockey to do so on Minella Times. We'll talk to Rachel in a moment. Good morning, Rachel. It's looking splendid, isn't it? Anyway, first let's get through the rest of the sport, because it was a big night in the Women's Nations League. And the Lionesses, they're looking in good form with less than 100 days to go before the start of their defence of their European title. Last night, they thrashed Belgium 5-0. It was a goal fest indeed. It was Lucy Bronze who opened the scoring. Before then, they just flowed. Millie Bright, Aggie Beaver-Jones, Jess Park and then Kira Walsh completing the rout. So Serena Wiegmann's side have built on their victory then over world champion Spain in February as they gear up for the Euros in Switzerland, indeed, in the summer. In contrast, though, there was a double disappointment for Wales in Cardiff. Not only did they lose 2-1 to Denmark, but their goal scorer, Kerry Hodden, was stretchered off with what looked to be a serious leg injury with just a few minutes to go. So our thoughts go out to her and her family and her teammates, but hopefully she can get over that pretty quickly, more quickly than expected perhaps, and away to Sweden then on Tuesday. It did look nasty, didn't it? Scotland's dismal campaign continued as they were thrashed 4-0 by Germany. The Scots lost their opening Nations League game to Austria and Netherlands. They travel to face Germany again on Tuesday. Now, Burnley midfielder Daniel Maxwell opened the scoring for Northern Ireland in their 1-1 draw against Romania, but they led for just 5 minutes in Bucharest as their mixed start to the Nations League continued. They'll meet again in Belfast on Tuesday. Now, there are 5 Premier League matches later today, including not very far from here. Everton trying to do Liverpool a favour as they take on Arsenal in the early kick-off. And in the Championship, a big day. Leaders Sheffield United and second-place Leeds are both in action. Leeds have a tricky-looking tie away at lunchtime at Luton Town, trying to buck up their form, which has been poor recently. In contrast, so in-form Middlesbrough gave their Championship playoff chances a boost with a 2-0 victory at Blackburn last night. Tommy Conway scored in just the second minute of the game. Borough move into the playoff positions with Rovers now 11th after just taking 1 point from their past 7 games. On to Formula 1 and the Japanese Grand Prix, where qualifying has just taken place. And I can tell you that it's the 4-time world champion Max Verstappen who will start on pole position for the 4th consecutive year at the Suzuka circuit. Championship leader Lando Norris will start in 2nd, with his McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri 3rd. Ferrari's Lewis Hamilton will start from 8th. Back here, in a winner's enclosure, we have a real winner. The history-making Rachel Blackmore became the first female jockey to win this famous race in, 172 years or whatever it was, back in 2021. You all get a separate trophy now, don't you?
Yeah, Rachel? Everyone has a separate trophy, but yeah, we'd all like to get our hands on this one as well.
You could do again, couldn't you? We'll talk about that. Where is yours at the moment, by the way? The one you won in 2021. Have you got a special place for it?
Yeah, so the jockey gets a little kind of replica mini one of this, and yeah, mine is. It's in our dining room. Yeah, in a very prized place.
So when it comes around for dinner, they get to see the trophy.
Yeah. No, it's cool. It's yeah, it's cool. It's definitely nice to look over at it when you're having your dinner.
And how do you feel when you step into this winner's enclosures now, after what the emotions of breaking that long wait back in 2021?
Look, it's just fantastic to be back here. You know, the 3 days, the whole 3 days here, it's just such a great atmosphere. You know, the people of Liverpool just embrace the racing here, and especially the big race today. So, yeah, it's great to be back here and, yeah, trying to win it again.
Does it still send shivers down your spine when you think of that winning moment when you came in here as the winning jockey in 2021? Of course, no crowds then, was it, because of the COVID?
Yeah, it was very different to how it's going to be today. You know, there was very much a stripped back crowd, but yeah, it didn't bother me in the slightest. I don't think I could have been any happier. It was just an incredible moment. Like when you cross the line, you're just filled with such elation and joy, and you know, just nearly disbelief that, you know, you're the lucky one that got to win the race. You know what I mean? It's a race I grew up watching as a kid. You know, it was the first thing that kind of sparked my interest in racing, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. So, yeah, just to think that, you know, you can say that you're part of its history now, it's very special.
Absolutely. So, yeah, just talk us back to what were your first memories of the National then? Was it literally just going around to friends and watching with the family and friends?
Yeah, I remember going around to my friend's house, and they did a big sweepstake, you know, the traditional
like everybody else we do this
paper,
morning,
and, you know, you had your 5 horses. I can't remember what even year it was, but you know, I just remember the excitement of, you know, looking down at them and then looking back at the TV and trying to pick out your horses and how they got on, and just watching the race and the fences, and you know, you go out on your pony then the next day and you're trying to kind of imagine that you're doing that, you know. So it's brilliant to be at a stage now where I'm part of this race, and yeah, going out there again today to try and win it.
And we are thankful you are, because you had a fall on Thursday, which at the time looked nasty, and there was concern whether you'd be okay. But
no, it was perfect. Yeah, no, it was all good. Yeah.
Great. So Manila Indo today. What are the chances? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, he's in really good form. He's 12. He's 12, but he's definitely not showing any signs of his age.
Wow.
Yeah, he's really enthusiastic and just yeah, he's a phenomenal horse. Like, he's a Gold Cup winner. He was third in this race last year. So, you know, he obviously likes the place and took to these fences well last year. So yeah, just can't wait to get back on board him again.
Yeah, and of course you won the Gold Cup the following year after you won the National. So how does that experience help you now in these big races compared to some other jockeys who are dreaming of that moment?
Yeah, look, I suppose you're very thankful that you got to taste what it's like, but you still just want to feel that again. I think you get a taste of it, it just makes you want it again.
So what's your Grand National Day routine like now, Rachel? I know you've been out already this morning. How was that?
Yeah, good, yeah. I'll go back now. I'll get a bit of breakfast and get dressed and come back into the weigh room. I have a ride earlier in the card, so you know, that's kind of where your focus is at first, and then on to the National. Then your thoughts will move to that.
I'm trying to know, what does a Grand National jockey have for breakfast? Are you allowed to eat what we eat?
Yeah, no, I'm actually very lucky. I can. My weight is good, so I'm, you know, there is some lads who will be watching what they eat, but no, I'll probably. The hotel has some nice eggs, so I'll probably have eggs on toast or something like that.
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah.
Making me feel hungry now. So who do you think your main challengers will be then? Say you're up there towards the end in a great position. Who will you be expecting to see alongside you? Which horses?
Yeah, look, it's so competitive. You could make a case for so many of them, you know. Look, Aya Maximus has a big task. You know, he's last year's winner. But yeah, I think you know, he'll be up there again. Intense Raffles, Tom Gibney's horse, and JJ Slevin, I think they won't be too far away. Nick Rocket, another one of Willie Mullins' runners, I think he'll be up there. Iroko for John Joe Neal and his team. Yeah, look, you could be all day listening to them here, but I think, you know, if you're down at the start and you're lined up, you're in with a chance in this race. So
that's a good way to approach it, isn't it? Yeah. I'm just distracted by the bell behind you, Rachel, because what happens around 5 to 4, is it?
This will be a couple of minutes before the off time. Yeah, that'll be wrong. So
and that means the jockeys then have to get onto the horses.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm allowed to give it a ring?
Yeah, you can make sure.
Do I dare? Come on then. Oh my goodness, that's loud. Well, I suppose it needs to be, because there'll be so many crowds around here, a lot of noise, a lot of hustle and bustle with the horses, so it needs to be loud. But there we are. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Should have warned you about this. Had your ear off, Rachel. There we go. We've rung the bell, but it's not time to get on your horses just yet, by the way.
Thanks, Mike. That's winding us all up. Thank you. We'll be back with Mike a little later as that build-up continues for the Grand National a little later.
Now, local authorities, particularly those in seaside resort areas, have been given the power to double the council tax on second homes. The aim is to free up housing for local residents and reduce the number of homes being used primarily as holiday lets.
Yes, from the start of this month, councils across England have been able to charge up to 200% council tax on second homes.
But it's up to the individual local authorities to decide whether to impose this premium and how much extra to charge, right up to that maximum rate.
Well, there are some exemptions, though, including properties that are up for sale and those that are not in use because of things like planning restrictions. But once again, that decision is down to the local authority.
Well, our correspondent Jenny Kumar has been in Cornwall speaking to some of those affected.
This is rock on the North Cornwall coast. Some call it London-on-Sea. Around half the properties here are second homes. Meet Mag.
We can't really afford it.
She feels she's not a typical second homeowner. She inherited this house her dad built, and now her council tax bill has doubled to £6,000.
It's cruel, it's all I can think. It's really cruel. And we're not the only family. There's lots of families like ours who have been coming here since the 60s and 70s, and their families have grown. It is their family home. They don't let it out, but if they did sell it, it would be sold to another second homer.
They start sort of in the mid-200s up to, at the moment, mid-fours. When I say mid-fours, 4.5 million.
Like Mag, this estate agent isn't convinced the council tax hike will tackle the affordable housing shortage. Property sales here in Rock are up 40% on last year, but not many local people can afford these properties.
Cornwall's tourism economy is vital. We need to find a balance of not killing the golden goose, but creating more housing for a county that's in desperate need of it. We need more houses built. That takes time.
Jenna lives near Rock and she is struggling for just one home, let alone a second. Her family is once again looking for somewhere to live. They've been served a no-fault eviction notice. They've had to move dozens of times over the years due to landlords selling up.
We applied for 23 houses before we were able to get this tenancy, and to have to look and search and find something all over again and in an impossible market is just dire.
Dozens of councils across England are doubling council tax for second homes from this month, using powers brought in by the last Conservative government. But there are questions around whether it will actually free up housing for local people and concerns around potential loopholes. If a second home's put up for sale, provided as part of a job or undergoing refurbishment, it might be exempt. Those representing local authorities admit the double council tax charge isn't a magic wand.
It's not going to make an enormous game-changing difference by itself, but it is a measure that can help reflect the impact of second homes on local communities.
What do you say to those people who look at people with second homes and say, well, you know, I'm struggling to get a first home to rent or buy?
I feel very sorry for them, but what they really should be doing is getting onto the council and saying, build more homes that we can afford.
The government has pledged to build 1.5 million new homes. If they are delivered, they could help those struggling in tourism hotspots across the country. Jenny Kumar, BBC News, Rock in Cornwall.
Well, it is lovely weather for being in Rock or any of those tourist spots at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and with all that warm weather on the horizon, the Easter holidays, of course, too, starting for many. More of us are expected to head to the coast to enjoy the sunshine in the coming weeks.
And that means from this weekend, RNLI lifeguards will be returning to many of the country's beaches to help keep people safe over the holidays. And David Dixon has been catching up with some of those training in the southwest.
Crews are finalising their training, getting to grips with new kit and catching up with old friends. Last year, crews helped over 9,000 people and saved over 40 lives in the southwest region. You need to be fit and healthy to do this. I caught up with a few of the personalities.
You sort of get out of the groove of it all, so you need to get back into everything, get your fitness back up, get ready to, be working on the beach.
What is it about this job that you like most?
I love being outside, so any opportunity. So there's nothing better than sitting on the beach all day, although sometimes it's a bit rainy, definitely better when it's sunny.
The water looks nice, but it's actually pretty much as cold as it gets right now, isn't it?
It is cold. I say it's between 8 and 10 degrees. So I would recommend for those brave people who go into the water between the flags in Easter holidays, is recommendable at least a 3 mil wetsuit. There is an increase of cold water dips. What we say is if you're going into the water, just take it slowly. Get wet your wrist and the back of your neck first. Those are the important points, and then just go into the water after that. Or we are trying to prevent any cold water shocks when we start this time of the year.
Some lifeguards like Gus work for the RNLI all year round, but others like to be footloose and fancy-free during the winter months.
I did a bit of travelling. I went to New Zealand, but the majority of us go to places like Bali, and just try to chase the sun, basically, and keep fit for the season to start again.
It's a good life, isn't it, Harry?
It's not too bad. I did the surf life saving when I was younger, when I was about 8 years old. Started really early, and growing up, be a lifeguard, always wanted to be one, and yeah, I'm still doing it.
So despite the cold water temperatures, RNLI lifeguard coverage starts this weekend at 26 of the busiest beaches in the region.
It's not as cold as it can be. Yeah, good luck to them. Absolutely amazing.
We were just having a chat about that.
We were talking about sea temperatures just now, because the lifeguards clearly have to contend with that, although they wear big, thick wetsuits. But sea temperatures are still pretty cold, aren't they?
Yeah, that's cold, isn't it, Matt? That's what I was asking Rachel. I was like, is 10 cold? Yeah, that's cold.
It's cold. It's actually the coldest they get. There's a bit of a time lag between the air temperatures and sea temperatures. So sea temperatures tend to be the lowest at this time of the year, tend to be the highest, not until about September, early October. But with the sunshine out and, of course, the start of the Easter holidays, you may be tempted to go in. You'll have to be very brave. And as he said, you'll probably need a thick wetsuit as well. And just to add to that, these sea temperatures also govern the feel of things, particularly today and this weekend along these eastern coasts. You've got a pretty cold wind already blowing in a cold sea. So that's why temperatures have not risen much across some eastern areas compared to, say, the 24 we saw yesterday across some southern areas sheltered from that breeze. And there's even chillier air to come, actually, through this weekend. Not as high as yesterday. We've got high pressure in charge, yes, but around it we've got some Scandinavian chillier air just coming in to our shores. So temperatures will be down a little bit. It's also brought in some low cloud this morning through central and eastern parts. But you can see here in Dudley, just a short while ago, that low cloud is breaking up. It will be gone in the next hour here, and elsewhere it should be gone in the next couple of hours. There will be just a few exceptions. Northeastern coasts of England and eastern Scotland, there will still be a bit of cloud at times. Even that will thin and break. It'll still be a reasonably bright day later. Winds today, though, a noticeable feature, strongest towards the southwest, but it's here where we'll see some of the highest of the temperatures today, maybe up to around 20 to 21 degrees, down on yesterday's value of 24, but still well above where we should be for early April. But notice the effect those cold North Sea temperatures are having along the east coast, just 9 to 12 Celsius here. Now, the breeze sometimes helps, especially along the coast, keep the pollen away, but down towards the southwest, tree pollen season is getting towards the peak, high, if not very high levels here through today. And then tonight, low cloud returns to eastern Scotland more abundantly, but mainly to the far northeast. Elsewhere, a few mist and fog pockets, and with winds slightly lighter and skies clearer tonight. Could be a colder night, so it's a night for the gardeners to watch out. Again, there could be a little bit of frost here and there to start tomorrow morning. But for those out early, it'll be a bit of a fresh start, but a beautiful start. Lovely sunrise, lots of sunshine, any mist and fog clearing, some low cloud lingering through Orkney and Shetland, but for many, sunshine from dawn till dusk. Temperatures continue just to take a bit of a knock on what we had recent days, and still always coolest down these eastern coasts. So what of next week? Well, high pressure is firmly in charge, so no rain in the foreseeable future, at least in the next 7 days. And with that high pressure building a little bit, winds falling lighter, temperatures will rise once again. We could see them more widely, high teens to low 20s into next week. There will be a little bit of low cloud, though, around on Wednesday. And the other thing to note, of course, for the keen gardeners, with spring upon us, there will still be some chilly nights and maybe some nighttime frost as well. Back to you, Bo.
And that is actually very relevant for our next conversation. Beware those nighttime frosts. Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Matt.
Yes, because temperatures may be starting to rise. Some soaring above 20 degrees, as Matt was telling us, in some parts of the UK this week. Easter, of course, just around the corner, so spring has sprung.
Yes, it has. And whilst a lot has changed over the years in this country, one thing that hasn't is the joy that spring gives us. We've been diving into the BBC's archive to see how people were enjoying it this very weekend, the start of April, but back in 1962.
How does spring fever affect you?
Well, a great deal, I think. It makes me feel much gayer, much happier. Primroses, you know the lot.
Do you actually sort of feel this in your bones?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've been creeping about all year. I can walk now.
Do you notice it about you?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody you see's got a smile on their face, including you. Look at you, haven't they?
Green trees, and water and birds and things somehow.
What about boyfriends?
We change them rapidly this time of year.
Why?
All of a sudden, you just change from the winterites to the summerites.
Yes. There's certain men you go out with in the winter and certain you go out with in the summer.
I love he's nodding along. I absolutely agree.
There is nothing better than enjoying the spring sunshine and getting out and seeing flowers blooming and everything growing. So we thought we would bring in with us this morning gardening expert Sean Gagey, who's here now, as you can see, along with various props in front of us here. Plants that are growing, which we'll get onto in just a moment. But are you loving this weather, Stuart?
Absolutely loving it, yeah. It's really lovely weather. It's nice to get outside when it's like this. It just makes you feel better, doesn't it, when the sun's shining? So, yes, loving it.
People will be tempted to get out and maybe do a little bit too much too soon. Matt's telling us there's still a bit of a risk of frost out there. So what can we be doing now that we think about without putting anything at risk?
So this weather always makes people run to the garden centres and get the bedding plants.
Yeah.
It's way too early for that yet because of the risk of frost. What we can be doing now is planting things out like primulas, which are really hardy, and they'll give you flowers at this time of year, which look really lovely in the garden now. Also, if you want to start all your seeds, so if you've got little seed trays and little pots that you can have on your windowsill in your kitchen, if you've not got much space, start those off now inside, and by the time the nice warm weather does finally come, they'll be safe to go outside.
So talk us on what we've got here in front of us then.
So we have got a selection of vegetable plants. So there's a tomato plant there, a chilli plant, and some parsley.
We were trying to work out what this was.
Cayenne chilli plant.
Yeah.
So the tomatoes, I usually start them really early, like January time, just to give them a bit of a head start.
Inside?
Inside, yeah. Way too early for them to go outside yet. Same with the chilies, start them nice and early. Because I live in Manchester, you need as much warmth as you can get to let them ripen. And then the other things that we've got, so essentials for a gardener, if you're brand new to gardening, a little hand trowel, a little hand fork, really useful. Good pair of gardening gloves, although I don't usually wear them, I like to feel the soil.
Really?
Yeah, I like to feel the soil.
Yeah, you need to get dirt under your fingernails. It's not
Makes
proper
you feel like
gardening
you've done a
without
proper
that.
bit of gardening if you get a bit of dirt. And then I brought that tub in.
This is cute.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, if you've got a really small space for gardening.
Yeah.
And they just hook over a fence or on the edge of on the balcony, over a railing on the balcony.
Yeah.
And you can grow things like tumbling Tom tomatoes in those. So it's really easy to grow like a vegetable in a small space.
Yeah.
And clean them at the end of the year. They'll last for years, those.
Yeah.
So a good way of growing in small spaces.
I thought this was a sort of a grow bag, is it? No, what is it?
It is.
Or is this for waste?
It's a grow bag, and it is
it's got holes in.
Specifically for growing. It's for growing potatoes.
Yeah.
Potatoes?
Yeah.
And potatoes are actually really easy to grow, aren't they?
Really easy to grow, yeah. So, again, if you're limited on space, you haven't got ground to put potatoes in, get yourself a potato bag, grow some in that, and you'll get a really good crop.
What kind of potatoes? Is there any particular variety that you'd advise are sort of dead easy and don't need too much maintenance?
Whatever you like, really. I mean, if you like Charlotte potatoes or King Edwards, whatever your variety of potato is your favourite.
Nothing better than taking a new potato fresh out of the soil straight onto your plate. Well,
It's
cook
brilliant.
it first, obviously.
It's a good time of year as well to do all the sort of the tidying up jobs as well, isn't it? All my neighbours hated me yesterday because I power washed the terrace, and it was I thought I'd do it not on a weekend, I did it on a Friday. But I mean, it's a bit annoying. It's a bit noisy. It's a bit annoying, but it's a good time to do it. So get out and do all those sort of jobs. What are you doing at the moment?
I'm power washing today, so that's my weekend job this weekend. All I would say is don't be too tidy in your borders and your beds. because there's a lot of insects and invertebrates that are still hibernating in those leaves and things that are beneficial for the garden. So trying not to be
before you
really
start raking through big piles of stuff.
Yeah, just keeps a little bit of mess in your garden, because the beneficial insects and invertebrates will really like that.
My garden is very wildlife friendly because it's very untidy.
I love it.
Yeah. It's all for the wildlife. The thing I'm most excited about is the pots of jam you've got there. Because the raspberries aren't coming till much later on in the summer.
No, they're from summer fruiting raspberries, them. So last year I had a bumper crop. 39 jars of jam were made, so...
How many?
39,
From Manchester raspberries?
From Manchester raspberries,
Brilliant.
yeah. So I brought those 2 jars of jam in for you two today.
No way!
Yeah.
Do we get to keep them?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so excited about that.
I had to stop her putting her finger in and then say she couldn't give it you back because she'd already had some of it. Loads of you sending your pictures in this morning. Let's have a look at some of them, because you've sent loads. We'll get your view on all of these as well, Sean. This is Pete's garden, Charleston, in East Sussex. Look, it's a blossom out. Good time of year, of course, for blossom.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of tidying up of that patio furniture. Might want a bit of a power wash.
I don't think this is fair. I like it.
We're doing your jobs list.
Plenty
when
of
you
stuff
send
for
us
the
your
insects
pictures.
there. I look at that blossom. That is just gorgeous.
The blossom at the moment is stunning, isn't it?
Is that earlier this year, the blossom?
No, it's about the right time.
I think it's just you really notice it against the contrast of the blue sky.
So Michelle's saying this is actually magnolia tree. She says in West Sussex. This is incredible. Look at the size of that.
Yeah, that's huge. This is Hampshire.
Oh,
that's
beautiful.
A very nice. There's some serious effort gone into that.
Oh, those are neat beds and borders, aren't they, Sean?
Really neat borders. Those are stunning borders.
Thank you to Meg for sending that one in. Do you want another magnolia? Because they are lovely at the moment. Oh, look, a gorgeous spring bed there. This is from Julia in Suffolk.
Oh, so what's that? So some daffs, so what, some hyacinths are there down the bottom, do you think, Sean?
They look like hyacinths, yeah, so daffodils, hyacinths in that bed there, which look really lovely.
I'm glad you got your glasses on.
Yeah.
As well. Thank you for doing this.
And this is a camellia. So we've got one of these in our garden at the moment. That's from Joanna in Sheffield, and she says the camellia is looking absolutely lovely. And this is an illustration, actually. If you don't have loads of space, loads of grass, so much you can do with pots and beds.
Absolutely.
What you should be putting in pots now? You said, so what? Primulas get in?
So things like primulas, you can get hardy violas and pansies that do really well at this time of year and will be in flower now. You can even go out and buy bulbs that are growing, so daffodils from the garden centres. If you were late putting your bulbs in, you can get them in flower and put those in your pots.
I thought it might be a bit late for daffs right now, no?
You'll find them still growing in little pots in garden centres, so it's not too late, but you'll probably just catch the end of them now.
And then they'll be there for next year.
They'll be there for next year. And the other thing you can buy is your bulbs in the green. So if you buy them now in the green whilst they're growing, put them in now. It's a lot cheaper than buying them in autumn. And then they'll come back next year.
Good shout.
Good advice.
Listen, it's been a delight to have you in today, and I'm not just saying that because of the raspberry jam. But you're welcome anytime. I will. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. Really nice to see you. We'll be back with the headlines for you very shortly. Stay with us.